I was discussing about in my last class that we can create class and we can create any number of objects from that class. And if we can create a class like this, we normally define all the data members and the member functions in the class definition, and then we can call the objects, we can create the objects, and about the memory mapping of the objects, that is how the objects are allocated some memory, and how the member functions are called, or how you can access the data members. So all of these things I have discussed. So today I'll show you some examples. So gradually we'll be checking down this example, we'll be modifying this example. Okay, so let's see this. So here what I have done, I have taken one class card. Okay, and there I have taken 3 data members. So what are these data members? I have mentioned them as public. Okay, and then I take all the data members. I have created one object called card object 1, and then I have assigned this BMW, this X5 model, and year is this. So these are the three data members. So these are the data members, and we have assigned the values to this. So when I create this one, card object 1, so card object obj1, this is one object which is having memory allocated for these 3 variables: brand, model, and year. So for them we have added some value, that is BMW, X5, and this. Okay. Now again I am creating one more object. So if I create one more object, so then memory will be allocated for this one, obj2, same for brand, model, and this, and we are assigning the value. So the value assignment, how we will understand that this brand is for car obj1, or how I will be understanding that this year is for this car obj2. So for that we are using the object name and dot operator, right? These things I have already discussed. Okay. Yeah. Yes, so the easiest way to access the data members using dot operator. Okay, so this dot operator and the object name. Okay, that means this particular data member belongs to this object, this particular data member belongs to this object, etc. And we can normally print their values. Okay, so this is we know. Now this thing is public. Now one more example. Say for example, I have taken the length, breadth, and height of a box object, a box class as the data member, and I want that I'll be adding the values for length, breadth, and height for every box object, and I'll be calculating the volume. So I have taken one volume here, one volume variable here inside main. Okay, and I have taken the box 1 object values for box 1 object and box 2 object in here. Okay, so this thing I know, and next I am calculating the volume. So is this volume I am calculating, is this for box 1? Because we have taken all the box 1 object values. We have taken all the box 1 data members. And so this volume is calculated for box 1. So this is volume of box 1. We have calculated this volume. Now you see the same variable is used here also. So can we do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, because this is a local variable, normal variable. Okay. From the idea of C program, I can say that I can create any variable anywhere in the class, anywhere in main, and I can use it. So this is for box 2. Okay. Now our idea is if there is if we need to do this thing repeatedly, say there are 50 boxes, we need to take the height, length and breadth, and we need to calculate the volume. So is it a good idea to take the box 1, box 2 like 50 and then we'll be initializing them, then we'll be calculating 50 volumes, etc. It's not a good idea. We need to write down too many codes. So there comes the idea of creating the member functions. That is, only one copy of member function will be created and every object can use it. They can pass their values. They can these actually, if you create a volume function which will be calculating the volume for every box depending on which box is under consideration. Okay, that is a good idea. So here comes the member function. Okay. So I have taken all these things. You just see the difference. There I have taken the volume as a local variable. Here we have taken it as a data member, the volume. And one function is added, that is the member function, which is actually calculating the volume and returning it. Okay. So what we are doing, we are creating box 1, box 2. We are taking the values from here. Just we are hard coding the values and then we are calling box 1 dot volume. So this part, you know, we can call it. So whenever we call box 1 dot volume, so this height, length and breadth, it will see that which object is under consideration. That is, box 1 is under consideration. So when box 1 dot volume is called, the volume function will automatically converted these names, these variables as box 1 variables. This box 1 dot height, box 1 dot length and box 1 dot breadth will be accepted here. And the same volume function, when we call for box 2, then it will check out which object is under consideration and that object values will be selected and the calculation will be done. Okay, is it fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Next is, can we do this thing? This thing is also repetitive. Can we do this thing in the same way like we have done for volume? That means we are calculating the volume by putting all this data hard coded. Can we take the data from keyboard? Okay, so here comes one more portion that we make as a function. That is this particular thing. If we can code this thing, put data. Put data is taking values, this H, double I and B, and then it is assigning to this height, length and breadth. So in the same way, if I call put data with some values. Now here if I call put data with some values, put data is a member function and we can call a member function using dot operator and object. So I have created one object box 1 and you see the difference. Previously, when we create box 1 object, we used to initialize the values for every data member for box 1. That is the box 1 dot height, box 1 dot length and box 1 dot breadth. But here what we are doing? We are just passing 3 values. Okay. So what actually the compiler understands? The compiler understands now this box 1 is under consideration. So when box 1 dot put data is called, this put data actually it is taking this 5.0, 6.0 and 7.0 in H, L and B and it will be assigned to height, length and breadth. So whenever you call box 1 dot put data, actually box 1 will be called and the values will get initialized to height, length and breadth will be initialized whatever value you are passing. Isn't it? And we call this box 1 dot volume. It does the same thing that it does in the last program. It will call this one. So is this okay? You understand the mapping, the binding between the object and the functions, how they are working? We are not creating separate functions, separate member functions for all the objects. We are creating only one copy. And box 1, box 2 means as many as number of box object you are creating, they can call them using object and dot operator. So how they are mapped, you understand this thing? Those who are new to C++, okay? Yes. Yes. So if anyone is having any doubt, you can tell me. So this is the basics of object oriented programming. This thing you need to understand well, and gradually we'll be developing other ideas. Okay. So this you understand. So here the first one. So I'm going back to the first example. My first example is this. This. Okay. So here you see how many number of lines are there in the code. Okay, and you see here how many number of lines in this code. So we have reduced the number of lines of code. We have make it structurally well and also easily readable. Okay, so this is the idea of doing a good program, and we can this is how we can access the data members. Okay, so next is one more example I have included. So this will implement a student class where name of the student, marks of the student will be taken as data members, and we'll be writing down function to assign the initial values, then compute total and average and display the data. So this is how we do that. Okay, just you see here I have taken three variables. And then I have created three member functions. I have defined them inline. Okay, inside. Okay, so this void get data is taking actually the name and the marks. So marks, we have used a simple array of 5 integers. It is taking the marks, and sum is initialized to 0 here. And then we are calling this average function. Then we are defining the average function. It will take the summation of all the marks, and it will divide them by 5, and it's stored in the sum. Okay, and displays all the marks and average. Okay, so how we are creating? We have created student called stu. So student stu, this one is now calling get data. So how the program functions? First it is called stu. So the structure is made, the template is made for student, where name, marks and sum is there. Place for name, marks and sum is allocated, and after that we are calling this get data. So the control goes to this get data, and this get data is called for the object. Always you keep in mind which object is under consideration. So this object now taking this name, that means this name means stu dot name. So here we are assigning the value, some value, and then also for the marks is also, this marks is converted as stu dot marks. Okay. Similarly, the sum is also this one. So whenever we call this stu, this object is necessary. Object and the dot operator is necessary to call any member function. Otherwise, you cannot call any member function. Okay. So this you understand, this example? Very simple. Next is, can we have some methods with parameters? We have already method with parameters like the put data function in the box class. So can we have methods with parameters? That means, can we have functions with parameters? Yes, of course we can have. That is the usefulness of having the functions. So how we can do that? Here is a very simple example that I have taken the speed. We will be taking the speed as this int max speed. So this is the declaration, the member function declaration, and we are defining it outside the class. So recalling how to define outside the class, first we'll be writing down the return type, then the class name, then this scope resolution operator to signify that this particular speed function belongs to which class. It may happen that there is a class called car and there is a class called scooter. So that also can have a public data member, as speed. Member function as speed. That can also have. Okay, so that time we need the scope resolution operator, and it is just taking this value and returning this value max speed. Okay, so if you are passing 200 with my object dot speed, so we are calling this function with 200. So what it will display? It will return and display 200. Okay, so how we are passing the value in normal function, how we are passing the value, you follow the same convention. Okay. So here is one more example. Just going through this. This is one example of a bank account where it will take account holder names, number, etc., account type and all, and then there will be function to initialize all this data. So I have created one. I have taken one menu. I have created one menu for this. Just I have means provided this one, the options for option 1 for deposit, 2 for withdrawal, 3 for display, 4 for exit, and then entering the choice. And with every choice I have called one case and I have calling one function. Okay, so this is how we do that. You first see this one. So I have taken the variables, these are the data members, and these are the member functions. I have defined the member function inside. Initialize will be taking down the name and the account number, and they do all the calculations, like it will be asking you enter account type, savings or current, then it is taking this, and it is as per this it is doing the thing. Okay, it is asking you to enter some balance, and then it is means showing you the balance. And for deposit, it will be saying enter the amount to be deposited, and it will get some value, and balance will be increased by that value. Okay, similarly for withdrawal it will be decreased, and for display it is just displaying all the thing. Okay, the functions are normal functions, that are one is to initialize, one is to open the account, another is to deposit, withdraw, etc., and it will be just showing in this way. Okay, so you can surely copy paste it, and you can check it how it works. Okay, so here what I have done, I have created only one object, account A, and I have called account A dot initialize. The process is same. We will be calling with object and dot operator, and then for every function we are calling this thing A dot withdrawal, A dot display, etc. You understand this thing now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So this is one more. I'm just skipping this one. Here just I have shown you the things that we may sometimes do error, that is we leave this namespace std, or sometimes we make some error in this names. Okay, and this int, and this must be int and void, and some program sometimes during copying the program we write down this type of things. You from somewhere, if I copy something, it may happen that the reverse brackets or reverse quotes are there. So that thing you maintain. Okay, so these are different. The green parts are the modifications, just to show that for your visual correction. Okay. So next is one more idea of nesting of member functions. So nesting means like we have called normal functions from within another function. The same thing can be done with member functions also. The member function, they can also be called by means inside another member function of the same class. So here I have included one small example. Okay, so see the example. I have created two data members, m and n, then three functions, and I have defined all the functions outside my class. Okay, so for that, return type, class name, scope resolution, and the function name. Okay, so I have taken for input, I have taken two numbers, m and n, from the keyboard, and then for display, I have displayed trying to display which one is large. Okay, that means from m and n, which one is large I want to display. So what I am doing in display, inside display, I am calling this function large. So here we am calling this function large. Okay. So you see this function is a member function, but we don't require any object for calling this because we are calling this from inside this display function, and the object that is used to call the display function will be used for calling the large also. Okay. Is it okay? So this large function is called from within display, and this is the definition of this function large. Return type is int, class set, scope resolution, and this large. So what it is doing, it is just checking a simple thing, that is whether m is greater or n is greater. Which one is greater? It is returning that one. So what it returns, if it returns m, that also whatever it returns, that is displayed here. This you understand, na? Calling of function from within another function. And how the thing, that means the display, say this one is the object A. So we are calling A dot input and A dot display. Okay, but this large function is called inside this display. So there is no object and dot operator. No object and dot operator is used. So how it will understand for which object it is called? How it understands?
For the current object.
Yeah, because display, it is inside display, and display is called with A. So display is called with A. So generally, it is general that when it comes inside, it is also considered A to call the large. If you have some more variable, some more object called B, and if you called B dot input or B dot display, so that time it will ask value B dot, it will check B dot M and B dot N. This display will be calling large, and this large will do the comparison between B dot M and B dot N. Okay. You understand this thing?
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, can we call a function that's outside the class?
Function means?
Ma'am, can we call a function that's not actually a member of the class?
You want to call a function that is not in the class.
Part of class. Can we
not
do that?
Member function, not a member function.
Yes, ma'am.
So that class, that if it is not a member function, you can call it like the other functions. Okay, you tell me. If
I'm asking for the case of nesting.
Oh, you want to ask this? Can you call a function that is not inside the class?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not getting your idea. I'm not getting.
In case of nesting, ma'am, I'm asking in case of nesting, can we call a function that's actually not a member function inside the defining of a function? Member function.
So where it is defined? That function where it is defined?
In the local domain.
From where you will call that function?
Ma'am, I'm asking that a function that's not defined in the class, actually it's outside class.
Maybe say that is defined in main, that is called in main. So where from means you tell me where it is definition. Say there is a function called function 1. Okay, it is defined, say void function 1. It is defined just after the main.
Yes.
Now how we will call the function?
So ma'am, I am asking that
normally we've called the function, we can call the function from here. We can call it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now if I want to, in place of large, say if I want to, I have written this large function outside this. Okay. So I want to call that function here. Fine. So what we are going to do, say this large function is actually not inside the scope. Okay. So you tell me, will it work for objects? Because our aim is to create some object A, B, C, etc. and A dot M and A dot N is there. Say this is b dot m and b dot n is there. Say this is 10, this is 20. Say this is 1, this is 5. Okay. Our aim is to check whether which one is larger, a dot m or a dot n. Between these two and between these two we will check by the large function. Okay. Now how we will refer this function there then? Forget the nesting one. Forget the nesting part. First you try to call a function that is not a member function, but you want to do the same thing. So how we will understand this large, this m and n for which object? Because you are non-member function, you cannot call them using objects, isn't it? If it is a non-member function, can you call them using object and dot operator?
No.
Are you getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
So if it is a member function, then only you can call it using object and the dot operator. And then only you can map this. Okay, if I call this with a dot large, then it will, this m and n will be computed. This two will be considered. Because this m and n, they may look like you are just writing m and n, but whenever you call this thing with object, that same thing I want to tell you till now. That whenever you call this thing using object and dot operator, then only it will consider this m and n for a. If you call this with object b, that means it will consider this m and n for b. Then 10 and 20, here for a 10 and 20 will be compared, m and n. But for b it is compared 1 and 5. Okay, now the point is, I'm coming back to your question. Can we do the same thing using, can we call this function that is outside the class? So what is your answer? Can we do that? So will it find, means will it find this display function is called with a. So whenever you want to call the function large, that is outside, that is defined outside. So how we will call this function? Will it be possible to call? No.
No, ma'am.
Are you getting my point? Because for this to work well, you need to map it with some object, and objects can call only the member functions. So it must be the member function. Okay. Is it clear? You can also try it. You can also try it. If you want to do the same thing, forget about nesting and all. If you want to do the same thing, that means if you want to just calculate the sum. Okay. Say we are taking two values m and n, and we want to calculate the sum. Okay, and the sum function you write down outside the class. So outside the class, if you are writing down, you need to call that one. So only from main you can call it. How we will be passing the objects to them? It's not possible. Think logically. Okay. Is it okay? Is it clear, or should I explain it once more?
No, ma'am, it's okay.
So when you do any program, you need to remember the properties of the member function and the non-member functions. Okay, non-member functions are normal functions that you can call them from main only. So next is the private member function. So this, if you want, means this is a normal practice to place all the member functions in the public section. We know that the public section, whatever is written, the functions can access the data members from the private section. Okay. But there may be some situations where we need to write down the member functions in the private part, in the private section. So that time you can do these functions. Means you can take this thing, that is nesting of member functions. That means one function can be this large function you can place here. Okay. You can place here in the private section and you can call it, because public functions can directly call the data that are defined as private. Okay, so the nesting of member functions, here it is useful. If some function is defined in the private section, that function can be called from another member function that is defined in the public section. Okay, so here sometimes if you may want to make some private member functions as private, that time you can use the nesting of member function, the idea of nesting of member function. Okay, so tasks such as deleting an account in a customer file or providing increment to an employees. Okay, so these are sometimes require restricted access. So you can place the functions in the private section and they can be called by using this concept, nesting of member function. Okay, so here is one example. So I have defined it. See, read and write. There I have defined in the private section. By default, all the members are private, so I have not defined anything, any access specifier, so it is private section. So this is so now if we use an object called s, okay, and if we call s.read, it will not work. Okay, if I write it down, say s.read, it will not work. Rather, we have to have a public function, say for example, update. If update is a private public function of the same class, you can just call them like this. From update, you can call read. Okay, so I think this is clear to you how we are doing this, because this is a simple call. No object is used. Okay, it may come in your mind that if no object is used here, if it is a simple call, we can also call a non-member functions from here. But how if that non-member function wants to access some objects, want to access some data members of some particular object, it will not able to do that because there is no mapping, there is no binding between the object and that function. You understand this thing? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
In the second part, the void sample, it is, we can use the read function here. So this part, it is not public. This part, it is not private.
No, actually, this sample is actually, I have not written here. It must be in the public section, this sample, sorry, this update function. Okay. Now we are defining it outside of our class declaration. So if you now say, I have not written actually, in main, say if you create some variable, some object, say s1, and if you call this s1 dot update, so it will call s1 dot update. So this update is for s1, they understand. And inside of update, when this read is called, compiler understand this read is also called for this s1. So this, say the definition of read is, it is taking value for m, say. So it will whenever this is considered for s1, that means this s1 dot read, it will convert the call as s1 dot read. So for s1 dot m, it will take some value, say. Okay. Now you understand this thing now. Means even if you are not using this dot operator and object, but the object used to call the outer function, the same object is used to call this function. That's how it works. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So we can also have arrays. We can have array of objects. The similar manner we create more than one objects. We can have array of objects. You see this example. This is a very simple example. I have taken employee data. Get data and put data is our normal function. Get data is for taking the value from keyboard, and put data is to display normal functions. Okay. Just I have written them outside of main, outside of the class, and in main what we have done, we have created array of 5 employees. So this is array of object. So in place of one object we can create the array, and the other things are normal. We have, whenever we use arrays, we use for loops for initialization or something. So what we are doing, we are repeatedly calling this get data for employee I, So I value gets incremented from 0 to 5. It will be taking the I value. And the put data, the same thing that we use for one employee. We are just calling this thing using array of object, and we are calling this with some loops. Is it okay? You understand this thing?
Yes, ma'am.
All the ideas are same, just we are using array of object. Okay. This is one more. We have taken one more array called engineer. Okay, two arrays we have taken the same thing. You repeated the same thing. Get data and put data is same for both of them. Okay, just you need to iterate the loop properly and to pass the objects and to initialize the objects for foreman and for engineers. Okay. Today up to this, tomorrow I'll discuss this thing, object as function arguments. Okay, and probably tomorrow I'll be completing this one, and after that Sir is going to take one or two classes, and after that I'll be again showing you the concept of constructors and destructors. Okay, so till now if you have any query you can ask me. Is it okay? You understand this thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Especially for the person who are actually first time you are learning C++, for them also. Is it okay? Is it you understand this thing, or if you have any query you can ask it. Okay. Okay, so let's meet for today's lab. Today's lab will be from 3 o'clock. Okay. And the assignments, whatever you have done, the technical assistants and the scholars will be checking them and marking you. Okay. So all of you be ready with the assignments and also ready with your computer screen that need to be shared.